I'm not even going to bother explaining what we're going to talk about because we're just going to like insert like hundreds and
No,
hundreds of
no, no,
topics.
come on, come on. No, let's do it. You
Right,
explain what we're going to talk
we're
about
going
today.
to today we're going to talk about technology.
Disappointing.
I'm not going to
Yes.
list out like 10 different things.
Yeah, good point. There are 10 different, probably 10 different things. So very rapidly, we usually have a little bit of a chat before, but the moment I said one thing, Danny just pressed record. So I am experimenting with time blocking, which for people who know and have seen my points on socials about my resistance to time blocking, that might come as a bit of a surprise.
And this is why I want to poke it a little bit because I'm curious as to what you mean when you say time blocking.
Okay, so when I say time blocking, I basically mean what you have done. And it's very loose, very like, this is a topic of thing that I'm going to do during these hours. This is a topic of thing I'm going to do these during these hours, whatever the specifics are or not specific. But this is a thing that happens during this time, and it's exceptionally fluid and flexible because basically what happened is everything in my personal life and pretty much every part of my life right now is incredibly just chaotic. Chaotic to a point that I just that even for me who relishes chaos, I just need some structure. And I was talking to a therapist recently, and she mentioned it, and I just looked and I went, "You're doing my job," and it was just that moment of like, well, that's stupidly obvious. And so I'm experimenting with time blocking in Morgan, because Morgan is amazing. And so far, being that it's the first week, so it's all shiny and pretty and new, it's been pretty helpful. Things haven't gone to plan, as they never do, but having some form of anchor, something to latch on to when I'm just like floating around. It's also half term.
Mm-hmm.
During the week. So obviously it's even more chaotic because I have my kids and I'm looking after them as well as balancing my partner's job and all of like shift work and all of that stuff. So it's still very chaotic. So having this tiny bit of structure, because I found myself either doing one of three things. One, just literally floating through the day, doing nothing because my brain was just like, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. And I try to do all of it, which means I end up doing nothing. Um, then it was two, it was I hyper focused on one particular thing and then abandoned everything else, which was often what happened. Or three, it was a mixture of the two.
So I'm curious. Obviously, I use Morgan as well. When it comes to not getting something done, what do you do with the time block? Do you move the thing that you were doing like down, or do you add a block in? Like, how do you, I guess, manage the calendar blocking thing? Because for me, when I don't get something done, I will drag it to the next day, either pushing Control 2 to bring up the next day and dragging it over, or just dragging it over and then it moves your thingy anyway. Like,
Yeah, so my time blocks, let me just, I could probably bring it up if I hide
I was going to
all
say, just calendar set and hide all the personal stuff.
if I hid all the personal stuff. Yeah, I have. Cool. I will share my screen and then you can kind of see it. So I have a very simple, it is
Oh God,
very broad
events.
right now.
Do you use
Hmm?
events?
Yeah, I've used events in a separate calendar in the actions, and I've just put it in like that. And then I have tags because I was playing with tags. I don't know whether I like all this. I still haven't fully decided everything yet, but it's still kind of playing with it and seeing what it looks like. I have different colors. It is all on one calendar. As but for people who don't know, Morgan, this isn't for you. You already know.
I
I've
probably
got
told you this.
yeah, you did. I've got tags, which change the color. So I'm very visual. I like the visuals. So purple stuff is stuff that's kind of what I class as regenerative. So it feels nice. It gives me energy back rather than taking energy away. In my head, oversimplified, but we'll just keep with that. And then we've got like adulting stuff. When I just have to adult and do things that are not the funnest thing in the world, not related to my work, but need to be done. And then I have kind of stuff that is money earning, so I'm earning money so I can like revenue generation or stuff that will get me more money is put into that. And so I have all of these kind of snippets of things that I do. And then as you can see here, and what I've done is I've just set it as a recurring event. I like having that. It means I don't have to think about it. So it's pre-done every single week. And then if I need to move things around in answer to your question, so one good example was actually what was it? One time this week I actually had to move these two around. I think it was, I don't actually remember now. One day this week I moved things around a little bit. Yeah, these two actually, yeah. Because I had to go out somewhere, so I had to shorten the time I had for both of these things. And also, it looks like there's a lot of time chunked off, but there is also a lot of kind of free time and space just to do other things. I've also started putting tasks in as like, oh, this is the thing I need to do during this period of time. And then if I can't do it, then I just move it around, which I haven't done. So, and sometimes I just don't, I just leave it there and then I move it around if I
I
need
am
to.
noticing you've got priorities on tasks.
Do I?
Yes,
Oh,
Wednesday
some of them,
and
yes. Some of
Thursday.
them I do have priorities. That was just me playing with priorities. I don't
Okay,
really.
I was going to say
It was me.
me either.
Yeah, I did it to start off with, just to see what it did. Um, and I just didn't care.
Yeah, no, I
It did.
think this is one
It
of
didn't.
those things that. Sorry, you.
Yeah, I mean, priorities I just find stupid. I've never, I've never found them valuable because everything that I do is a priority. Because if it's not a priority, I'm not going to do it. It's quite simple. So having bigger priority and lower priority just felt really annoying and silly, and it didn't make sense for the way my brain works because everything I do, I class it as a priority. It's something that's important to me, which is why Eisenhower's matrix bugs me to high heaven. Because everything that I do is high, I want to do is high priority. Everything that because otherwise I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't bother doing it.
This is where I think it's interesting. Like a lot of applications, they add these features because most of the time it's because other apps have the features.
Yeah.
And I never really grasp what the point of the feature is until I found a use case for it.
Mm.
And priorities, I don't use on scheduled things. But
Mm.
when I haven't scheduled it and it's just in my task list, I
Mhm.
add priorities there because then I know which ones to look at first. And that's how I treat
Mm.
my tasks in Morgan and how I treat my projects in Obsidian
Mhm.
is this is something I want to get done. What is the priority on it at the moment? Then I will add the priority. And then when I'm doing it, it doesn't matter what the priority is because I've scheduled it. I'm doing it. That's my priority becomes redundant then.
Yeah.
So it's almost like once I've dragged it into the task list, the priority dots just like they just disappear. I
They're
don't pay
just
attention to them.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just there. Yeah, and I'm the same. And I'm still so a lot of businessy stuff's kind of, I don't know whether I can say anything yet, so I won't. But a lot of stuff is changing for me again. So I'm interested to see how I'm navigating it as my business work ramps up again, as well as all of the other things change and shift around as things are changing again. Um, so I'll be intrigued to see how that will work, whether I will change kind of my categories or not. Because yeah. So I don't know. That's something I'll think
So
about.
a question for you. This is a bit of a broader question when it comes to time blocking.
Hmm.
Businesses and teams
Hmm.
using their calendars
Hmm.
for project management, however you want to define project. What are your initial thoughts on that? Because I was having a conversation with Ali and one of his team members, Barv. I was having a conversation with them, and obviously they've recently tried out lots of tools because they've gone from Notion to Monday.com to Asana. I think they've landed on ClickUp at the moment. And most of the team use Fantastical as their like calendar viewer. I don't know what like calendar package. They use Google Calendar, but Fantastical to actually use the thing. And when I said to them, "Oh yeah, I use Morgan," they were like, "Yeah, but what do you use for projects?" I was like, "You're
Morgan.
Morgan." They're like, "How?" And I guess when you've got a team of 14 plus, well, maybe even 10 plus, the calendars could look a little bit chaotic. But
Yeah.
but I'm not sure. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I've been thinking of as obviously my business is shifting, as I said before. Like, I'm intrigued to see what I'll do because I don't really know yet, from a business standpoint. And it depends on how big the tasks are, how big the projects are, and it's the same thing as what I've always said with Notion of like, what is a project, what is a task, and once you define it, then it might be more helpful. Because if you have like hundreds of projects, then maybe it might not fit into Morgan. Like for example, you have a lot of projects that you have.
See
So
my
I can
bulk.
imagine your calendar is nuts if you put all of your projects in there. So I think having almost my instant reaction using you and what you do as an example would be having the once a project reaches a state where you need to interact with it a lot, so like your active video stuff that you're creating right now, then I would put it in the calendar. Otherwise it stays in Obsidian because it Obsidian is, I wouldn't even call it static, but it's not urgent. I think
Yeah,
that's kind of the priority thing that
that's where
I
the
would
notes
need to
are.
work with. Yeah, they're just notes. And I think that's kind of what I intuitively did. Because I'm doing a Notion build for someone right now. So I actually just put the notes in Notion because it makes sense, Notion build and Notion things. And then they see how I'm using Notion too. So it's kind of
Hmm.
all in one go.
So with that, that's how I'm currently using it. Obviously, I work for another creator, James, and we can talk about the Google Docs thing afterwards. But
You
with
better talk about the Google Docs thing.
but with the time blocking and things, like we have shared calendars. So because James didn't have a refined system as well as mine when I started, he's kind of just we've merged together my system with his sort of system to try and build something that we can both use. And at the moment, I don't think it could be any better. Like, I know what he's doing during the day. He knows what I'm doing during the day. We know what we're both meant to be focused on because of the all day project at the top, because it's dragged across like the month or the 2 months or however long the project is. So we have all the project in inverted commas, like information there. We don't need anything else in the calendar. So what we would get from Notion, we're getting in our calendars anyway. I don't need to see his tasks. So in Morgan, I push one when I'm working, which for me, like one is me. It's my personal thing. Two, the calendar set is for multiple people. So that shows me James's work, some other calendars, and then like the joint calendar that we have for the podcast. Like two shows me wherever I'm working with someone else. Three is then a planning, and that just gets rid of all the small granular tasks and just says, okay, these are your projects. And that basically means I have one personal project typically, and then or one work project typically. But when I look forwards, there's like other projects in there. And looking at the calendar, I don't need any other information. And if I really wanted to, and do like a Notion-esque linking my project calendar to my notes, I can just add the Obsidian link into Morgan. But I wouldn't do that because Obsidian is faster. It's easier to click on Obsidian
Yeah.
and either push the home button and get straight to it, push the temp button and get straight to exactly the workspace I was in. It's just quicker in Obsidian. In
Mm.
Notion, when I'm looking, or when I was looking at a calendar, I'd be like, okay, that's the project I want to do. Click in there. Then you get the whole dashboard thing. Then you got to click on either a database setup, a link, a page, whatever, to find where it was. And there's no, here's my layout, here's my checkpoint. In Obsidian, it's called a workspace. Notion, it doesn't exist, so I can't call it anything. It's like, here's my thing of where I was at. Here's my temporary
You
spot.
you can have you can change the settings in Notion to open up what you were just using now.
Okay, how many can you have of that? Because I've got like 3 or 4 different temps. Oh, just the one. Just okay. Yeah.
And you can, to be fair, you can have favorite pages. So you could have a favorite page, which it could be the dash. You would have to build this, but you could just put all of the things that
Yeah.
you want to see on that one page. You could. It is possible. It's not as lovely and beautiful and as sexy as Obsidian and quick as Obsidian. And without having to think, you'd have to think more in Notion,
Yeah.
which I think like after it's interesting because I've been thinking about this a lot with Notion versus Obsidian. Oh, I hate that, but best way of putting it. But like going back into Notion, I see why I love Obsidian, but I also I also see why other people love Notion,
Yeah.
because it feels like almost a journey. People start in these very fixed apps, and I'm talking from a business perspective, where you just work from a list in Asana, or you work from a board in Trello, or you work from this thing that is unflexible, and you work in it, you do it this way in tough luck. And then you move it, once that doesn't fit you anymore, you kind of move into this space of wanting to explore. And my instant feeling is if people jump straight from like fixed to Obsidian, that will be one, terrifying, two, they'll have no idea what they're doing.
The onboarding experience of Obsidian is challenging. I'm trying to help with that, but
But I
it's
think
challenging.
it's not just the onboarding of the application itself, it's knowing, like having that knowledge of yourself and getting rid of those misconceptions that occurred because of the apps you used previously. They will always be there. So maybe it's not getting rid of those.
I don't think it's getting rid of misconceptions. I think it's removing constraints.
Yeah. So it's like going from a highly constrained application and slowly moving yourself over. It is just
Well, it's
removing
not really a slow
constraints.
move. When you go from somewhere like Asana to Obsidian, that's not a let's
Yeah.
slowly ease
I
you
would
in. That's
never,
a I'm
I
going to
would
throw you down like 10-foot deep
that
end.
that's exactly the point. So when I speak to people who I think would love Obsidian, I put them in Notion first, because when they're in Notion, unless I can hear the signs of the fact that they need minimal constraints in their work, the first thing I'll do is like, okay, if they're not sure, I give them Notion, because Notion gives them less constraints and more constraints at the same time. So there are different constraints, which is kind of context switching for them and helping them think outside of the box. And then when they're like, yeah, well, I wish it could do this, and I start seeing workarounds, that's like, okay, come here, come with me.
I'm curious because the bookmarks core plugin that came out recently for the
That's so
insiders.
good.
Yeah, exactly. Like with the bookmarks, I think most of the friction points of figuring out what's where in Obsidian goes away for the initial users. Because most of the problems I see with initial users is like, how do I have my folder structure? Where do I store this file? How do I capture this, there, etc., etc.? And like, oh, Notion's easier because it's just got this top level page. And Obsidian's the same. It's just on the structure because most people use the files core plugin because that's like default. They're restricted in a way they didn't think they would be restricted in because they can't just drag a file up or down the list. But bookmarks you can. Bookmarks
Yeah.
you can have the searches in there, you can have the folders in there, you can have the files in there, you can have loads of things, and you can rename it, do what you want. So all the flexibility that comes with the Notion sidebar, you get with the bookmark sidebar and more because you can have searches in there. Which makes me wonder, okay, what on the like starting section, what you were saying you put people to Notion first. What is it about Notion's initial like ease pushes you to go that way? Because if you were to say don't use community plugins, I think most people could work in Obsidian. It's one of the videos I'm planning on doing, actually starting from zero with Obsidian without community plugins, because it's certainly doable. And it's what I would recommend for most people.
I think, and I am working from the context of my audience, not from the PKM space.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them have tech, like they don't trust tech automatically. And so being given complete and utter unrestrained like access to things can be seen as terrifying. And I'm generalizing for the vast majority of my audience. There are exceptions who I do move. If I notice that, then I move them straight over. And also, Notion is popular. Notion is becoming more exciting for people, and people want to use it. And my thoughts are they'll either go to a template, which is shocking for most people, or they go with a blank slate and are overwhelmed and don't know where to start and then have to pay a lot of money to get it done.
But that's what I mean.
And then
That's what I said in my recent video about Notion is a lot of people when they onboard on Notion, they need a lot of help. Yes, there's a lot of help out there, but they need help.
Mhm.
With Obsidian, because it is very similar to Word or Google Docs, when you look at it at face value, you just type
But
stuff.
it's not, and I don't agree with you there. We
Interesting.
know it is. We know it's like that. But
Have you
it's
tested this?
what, as in giving someone
Have you given someone that has no understanding of technology Obsidian?
uh no.
So I gave it to my dad.
Ah,
And
interesting.
And my dad knows literally nothing about tech. Like I have to explain to him how to get like files from one computer to another computer.
Okay.
He doesn't understand the cloud. He doesn't understand how to put stuff from like folders to a memory stick to another device. He doesn't get that. I have to help
Okay.
him.
Mhm.
I gave him Obsidian and he was like, okay, I can just type stuff here. Yes, where is it stored? In the folders over there. Oh, okay. And then he made files, he made folders, and he used it like a Word doc. Like, he didn't do anything else. Like he didn't click on the right side panel, that didn't open. He didn't click on any of the buttons in the left side panel, like that didn't open. He just clicked the settings cog, clicked the buttons in the ribbon, and then just typed stuff. He didn't use the like any of Obsidian apart from here's a file on my type stuff.
So I
It's stored in
think
a folder.
so I think to your point, actually, yeah, that's I in the context that I'm using, it's less about like new people who are technophobic. It's people who have understanding of some form of tech, but they are so full of assumptions about how it should look and be and behave that Obsidian completely bucks that trend.
And that I think is the not necessarily the issue, but the hump is it's the relearning process.
Yes, I agree. I think it's very
It's
much
the people
because
that think they know what they want, and then they
they
need
won't.
to reframe or relearn what that really
Yeah.
means to them. I
Yeah,
think
and
that's
that
the
is
people you're getting at.
Notion is easy. It is easier. Well, from the experience of working with other people, it is easier to get buy-in in Notion than it would be for Obsidian. Because I've shown people Obsidian, and there is a lot of like people are like, oh, that's amazing. I didn't know Obsidian could do this.
Hmm.
But those are people who already know how they work, and I'm using community plugins a heck of
I
a lot.
don't think they know how they work. I think it's they've seen it before. And this is what I was saying like, in one of the videos. Even if you're not looking for Notion, you see Notion or you see
Yes,
Notion like things.
that's true. Yes.
So even if they're not actively looking for the Notion app or they don't even know what the app's called, if they're watching a video on how to manage your business and the
They see
person in the
Notion
video,
stuff. It is exposure, yeah.
yeah, they
Whereas
just see it.
Obsidian is so nerdy and geeky and
So this was an interesting experience I had with James. When I first showed James, obviously I'm showing him my vault. So it's the default dark theme, and it looks fairly like Obsidian.
yeah.
But when I first showed him my Obsidian publish was on light theme,
Mm.
and I'd done a bit of like CSS to it to make it look a little bit cleaner. And he was like, "Oh, that looks like Notion." That was his first thought. That looks like Notion. So what I did is I turned my Obsidian to light mode, added the minimal theme, and he was like, "Yeah, that looks like Notion." So just the change of color and the change of theme
Interesting. I wonder if that
made
would,
him feel more
yeah.
comfortable in the tool. And CGP Grey did the same with Mike. He gave him the minimal theme
Interesting.
and turned it to light mode, and now they're suddenly like, "Oh yeah, I get that now." I think it's I think it's a dark mode thing. I don't know. Like,
Mm.
oh, dark mode. No, that's a Cody person. No, 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 can't use that thing because
Yeah,
Microsoft
I
Word is
had
light,
experience
Docs is
with
white.
dark. Sorry, I had the same experience with dark mode and Notion. People were like, oh no, that looks horrible. I hate that. And to be fair, interestingly, in my D&D vault that I have, I've actually got the D&D light mode. Or what's it called? I can't remember the theme. The ITS theme, and I
Mm-hmm.
have it in the
Yeah.
D&D light mode. I keep it in light mode for that. Whereas in my normal I have it in dark. I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah, dark spooky research.
That's what it feels like. It feels like you're in a closed out room. You got your
Yes,
screens on. You're like you're
yes.
zoning in. But
Yeah,
when I was using Notion, I was a light mode person. When I came to Obsidian, I was a light mode person. Going back to those videos now, I'm like, how in the world did I work on that screen?
I've always been a dark mode person, very much. I've always preferred dark mode. I think we've had discussions about it before. I've always preferred dark mode, because it just hurts. The light mode hurts my eyes. It's burning.
To me, the light mode doesn't hurt my eyes. It's just, it feels too. I'm trying to think of the right word. It feels too open. It feels too, not necessarily distracting, because I don't think distracting is the right word. But when I'm in there, it feels like I'm on a docs page or a words page, or like I'm reading a book sort of thing. It just feels like sort of going outside. You can do what you want, but maybe that is what it is in your head. It's like, this is light mode. I'm now outside during the day. I'm going to do all this different things, blah, 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 going to be exciting. And dark mode is you're locked in your room, or it's at nighttime. It's time to sort of zone in, focus. That's the feel I get in those modes. And because I'm doing more writing, like way more writing now in Obsidian than I was to start with, I don't want the light mode. I don't want to be, hey, yeah, we're outside doing exploration. No, I'm focused on working.
And that actually matches my experience of like the D&D Vault is done outside most of the time. It's very
fun.
Fun. So it's in light mode. Whereas when I'm in here looking at, I'm just looking interoception, self-organization. I've got them all open here. Attentional network deficits. My brain is like.
I mean, I could literally do the same thing with mine. I've got active recall, spaced repetition, I was looking around going, relative deprivation theory.
I just love that. Like, yes, we're talking about nerdy geeky stuff, and we just want to be. It's kind of going back to that, like in a closed room with the curtains closed, and you're just like, yes, I'm writing about posh stuff.
Exactly. And going back to like the onboarding experience of Obsidian, I recently went into their sandbox vault because I was testing out a bug. It is a bug, but it isn't. It's a weird, quirky thing with the canvas. Long story short, when you're in a canvas and you narrow to a heading, if you put a divider underneath the heading, because when you narrow in the canvas, the heading becomes the title of the page, the divider then becomes the YAML of that card, which obviously turns everything underneath it into YAML, so it changes the view of everything. I'm like, that's annoying. That's what we think it is. But I was trying to bug fix this, went into the sandbox vault, and the sandbox vault does what you would expect. It's sort of like an onboarding experience for Obsidian. It's like, this is how you make a file, this is how you do folders. And it works. It's simple. It's basic. But when you want to go a little bit further, that's where you're like, oh, now I'm lost. And when
I think that like, okay, so I can write stuff in here, but how do I manage my tasks? How do I manage projects? How do I do all of these things that in a business setting makes sense? And I think that's where it's more obvious in Notion.
I think it's more obvious because of
the templates, what they've seen, the templates and all that stuff. Yeah. Whereas with Obsidian, it's like it's once again to its detriment and its benefit of like it just gives you shit and you just like go find it, go look for it.
And this is where I think the emphasis on the big creators showing how they use it to do things comes into play, because you can go on YouTube and like every YouTuber is going to use Notion for something, for some reason. Even the biggest creators on the platform use Notion for their wiki because it's easy to share stuff. Yeah, great, cool. But when it comes to the actions, the tasks, the projects, that sort of stuff, that's where a lot of the creators, the individual creators, share all their stuff, and that's great. And everyone knows roughly where to start. But Obsidian, people, they're not showing those videos. They might be doing it in Obsidian. But there's not many people showing Obsidian to start with anyway on YouTube. And when you look at how people manage those things, it can look really complicated. Like if you look at a data view query and you have no idea what's going on, that looks really complicated.
That I think is the hard part. Like because all of what I would class as the good stuff in Obsidian, the stuff that really matches the way that my brain thinks with organizing and structuring things in a very dynamic and simple way, but is still organized, is where I think Notion does it enough, does it good enough. It's
Yeah.
nowhere near as nice and as well done as it is in Obsidian once you understand that it can be done in Obsidian. But as you were saying, as we were saying, like, because there's no creators apart from yourself talking about it in
Oh,
that way,
Nicole?
and Nicole, sorry, yes, and Nicole, but that's also D&D stuff, which is naturally nerdy. So it's also a little bit like she's erring on the side of D&D.
I'm really
I
trying to think of another creator that does this
yeah, so am
stuff.
I.
Like,
I'm struggling. Most
I
of them
know
are
there are
D&D
other Obsidian
creators.
creators out there. I just can't think of one that's like, this is how you can work in Obsidian. Because like, oh,
Maybe I should start doing that. I don't know, but
because
it's
oh, I
not that
can't remember the
exciting.
guy's name. But he did a recent one about AI. I'm like, for Obsidian nerds, this is really cool, but for normal people that don't care.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing of like
So I want to bring up a related point in my top tens plugin video.
that was the
Now,
weirdest thing I've ever seen on your on your YouTube top 10. Really, Danny?
well,
Wow.
I keep getting asked, oh, what plugins do you use? What plugin do you, in the comment section? It's like, you know what, sod it. I'm just going to do a top 10s plugin video for now. So I can just point people in that direction. Like, there you go, general gist. I did top 10, but really it's only 5. The first 5 are like, I mean, they're nice, they're cool. I don't really need them. And I got asked so much, why isn't the task plugin in there? I'm like, because I use Morgan. and and the only reason
It's interesting because my task plugin now is used as almost call out block,
interesting.
less as a task now.
Yeah. So the reason why it's interesting, because it relates all the way back to what we're talking about time blocking, is the tasks in Obsidian, I don't need a priority to, because they're just stuff I got to get done for the script that I'm writing or whatever it is that I'm doing. And I don't need to time block them, because if I time block all of those tasks, it's going to be like 100 3-minute tasks. Like, I'm just not going to do that. So when I'm time blocking something, i.e., a task of I'm going to write Act 1, as an example for after this, I'm not going to put in all of the tasks I need to do for Act 1. I need to write the first section. I need to write the second section. I need to write the hook. No, that's not happening. So all of those tasks, I don't need any time data for, any priority for, anything. I just don't need it because it's all in Morgan. I do need to track what I got to do, which just means add task block and find tasks. And that's all I have in my canvas. Actually, can I show the canvas? Give me a second. Because this is technically my work, so I'm like, I should be good. I'm just double checking everything. I mean, apart from the alley tweet, but I mean, everyone can see the alley tweet. That doesn't really matter. Yeah. So now I need to find which screen it is. It's that one.
Mr. Four Screens. Is it 4 screens now, or is it 3?
Yeah, it's 4. So you should be able to see the canvas. Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm on the right screen. I'm like, my head's turned all the way around the other way. So this is my, you can see, study essay. It's like an overview. It is in, actually, I'll bring, so this is on screen 2, and this is the actual file. This is my bookmark. So I've got like, it's a folder, but it's a group inside of bookmarks. I've got the overview canvas, which is what you can see there. And then you've got the script, and then the 2 research files, and then that's just a template folder for something else. So inside of here, I have, if I go into there, zoom in, I just have all the tasks that are inside that script. It's not a file, it's just a card, and it's data view, tasks, from, and then that's the file.
Oh, that's neat. That's beautiful. Yeah.
And because it's data view, I can click it, and then it will take me to the thing. It will take me on the other side. But so I just need a list of tasks. I don't need to be like, oh, when am I going to schedule this one? And what's the priority of this one? Like, find clip. That's all it is. I just got to find the clip for that thing. And when I zoom out a bit, so these are purple because these come from the content creators. Like, this is me learning from content creators how they script out videos. This is specifically a 3-act structure and different notes they've taken. I've condensed all the different creators' ideas and thoughts together into these 3 cards. So these are like templated cards in the canvas, and these ones change. So I can right click, narrator heading. So this is the Act 1, this is Act 2, this is Act 3, and then this. So this is in. I should probably go to here and show you exactly what's going on. This is the outline. So it's just the
Mhm.
outline section, Act 1, 2, 3, but it's laid out in a canvas so I can see them this way rather than in a linear file. I'll move the mic over here. Yeah, so I've got those three there. And then this is the actual Act 1, 2, 3. So
Mhm.
that's Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and this is the actual script. And any task that goes in to here will show over here. So I don't need to find them. I
And I
don't need to
love
be
that.
like,
Yeah.
where's the task? I can just find it here and I can click it. And then all the details of the like subplots, these are subplots of the story. I need to track it somewhere. Where do I track it? Well, it's in subplots. And these are the details. So that's the main plot. These are the characters involved at the moment. Connections. I don't have any connections because I've just started scripting this one out. And then I've got the why, like what's the problem? What's the perspective? What's the experience? Etc. Etc. So I have here in my overview what I got to focus on in those things. So while I'm writing the Act 1, which is on my second screen, I can come up here and be like, what am I doing again? Oh, that's it. Or what was this information? Oh, that's it. Oh, can I include any of these pieces of information while I'm writing this? Yes or
Mhm.
no. And something else, I guess, is another thing that I use is when I am writing. So I come here, I'm going to push a hotkey, Control Shift, comma, and I've zoomed in. So now it's only showing me that heading. So it's kind of like a focus mode almost. So you can see
Huh?
I'm what?
Oh, that's the outline plugin. The secret, private, quiet little outline.
Quiet outlines over here.
Yeah, well, what's that? What the fuck? How?
Zoom. It's a community plugin called Zoom. It lets you zoom into a bullet point or a heading.
Cool. I'm gonna
Yeah.
write that down.
Okay. Yeah, it's a pretty common one. Oh, it was anyway, when people were like comparing it to workflowy and logseek and stuff. Anyway, so now I can have on this side, I'm working on chapter 1, and then this side, whatever, and I'll be writing that in like on screen 2 with screen 1 being the canvas, and I can go backwards and forwards between the two.
Mhm.
And because I have 3 screens, I then actually have my research files on screen 3. Um, but yeah, so when it comes to all the task planning, let's come back over here. When it comes to all the task planning and putting dates and stuff and time blocking, I don't want any of that stuff, like any of those tasks on my calendar, because it's gonna turn into a mess.
Mhm.
And going back to Notion, when you have all of your tasks and stuff, you just get a mess of tasks. And then you got to like, do I now need a focus task for the day or a 3 task for the day, or how do I prioritize it? And you end up adding metadata like columns, properties and stuff to Notion tasks so you can get through all that stuff. But I don't need to do that because it's all in my calendar. So I don't need Notion for my project management because it's in Morgan. So what do I actually need Notion for? My notes. But Notion's not actually that good at
Yeah.
notes. So I just use Obsidian.
Yeah.
And that task query that I just showed you, I don't think that is that difficult when you compare that
No. No.
to like a Notion filtered database linked in a page.
No,
Like,
I don't think that's that difficult at all. That's actually really damn simple. Once you know, it is just like, oh, just do this.
you could do it in the core search. You could just search in core Obsidian to do tasks. And it
It's
will
true.
search for all the tasks. Yes, it will bring up everything and it won't be able to filter down to a file. But if you're doing all of the tasks as you go, it doesn't matter because you're seeing them all anyway. So it could be,
That assumes that they have good task etiquette and management.
yeah, obviously. But again,
which
that's
is
the same
which
as
when I'm thinking
Notion.
of the business owners that I work with, it's no, no, it doesn't work. It just does not work. And that I think it's once you the thing with Obsidian and what I believe is that Obsidian is great once you have a clear idea of what you want to achieve and do, and
My
you
point.
kind of almost have your constraints and you understand what you need. Once you're at that stage, and it's beyond the exploration stage, because that's been my experience. I started in tools like Asana and Trello and ClickUp and hated every single one of them. I moved to Notion, and then I moved back to ClickUp because obvious reason for various reasons. And then I'm like, okay, cool. And I knew Notion wasn't quite right. I could feel it, but I just didn't want to admit it. And then obviously I tried Obsidian and hated everything because I hadn't figured out the way that I worked. I hadn't let go of I suppose, the biases against the way that I actually worked. I had a bias that I should be working in a certain way. I had a
You're
view that
still
I had to
IP.
work. Huh?
You were still IP.
I was still very information processing, indeed. And I was like, I have to process stuff, input stuff, process stuff, and chuck it out somewhere, even though I never really chucked it out anywhere. So it just came back in again. But then it didn't really do that. And yeah, exactly. And so now it's very much, because I understand it is almost always a dynamic process. I now realize I need a dynamic system that is incredibly flexible. And because I work from that now, like I haven't been in Vaultcraft for a couple of, I don't think I've been in there in the last month. I opened it today and I still remember everything I want to do.
That's pretty cool.
So I'm looking at it.
I'm
Oh, yeah,
in
I
it
was going
every
to pull
day.
this
So
information in here. That's another thing that I'm trying to do is bring back myself into the research vault, because I use it as my research vault
as notes.
as notes, and
Yeah.
so I use that, and then
I'm trying to reduce the jargon that I use. So like when people ask what is Obsidian, what do you use Obsidian for? I'm just like notes. It's literally all it is, because that's all it is. I'm curious when it comes to, because obviously I don't know your side of it, because I'm always on my personal vault. It's called personal for me because I've got 5 vaults. So I need to be able to differentiate like really quickly when I'm vault switching, which is why I have the colors at the top. How long does it take to sync?
no, I don't really care. I don't notice.
Oh, you don't notice? Okay, I wasn't sure if you did or not.
It did today. I looked at it. I was like, I bet there's going to be a hell of a lot of updates. I wonder if it's actually done yet. I opened it a good 3/4 of an hour ago, so
it should be done by now. Yeah, because obviously there's been a lot of work on my end, like moving things around, and everything I do obviously needs to sync up to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. When it comes to the whole Google Doc situation, I had a lot of questions about it using Obsidian instead of Google Docs. I had a lot of questions about it. What are your initial questions?
How?
Beyond the obvious ones, because obviously, how do you write in
Well,
Obsidian?
that's the only one I care about, if I'm honest.
Yeah, but it's just writing in Obsidian, like the same as we do.
Yeah, but I assume. Okay, fine. Let me try and actually ask better questions.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like when people ask me, like, "Oh, I want a video on that," I'm like, what do you want me to do? Show me typing and then showing someone else typing? Like, what do you want to know?
Have you got it so that 2 people can type on the same page?
We're never typing at the same time on the same page.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I think when people think Google Docs, that's what people think.
Mm.
They think comments. They think like that's what
But
my
that's
brain
different.
goes to.
Comments are different because you don't have to. You don't.
Okay.
I would point
Okay.
the mic.
Okay.
Comments are different.
No, they're different.
Because you don't have to comment at the same time. Because when I'm writing, like the way the process works is they script, I review. They write,
yeah, so
that
that process there makes perfect sense in Obsidian. But what I'm thinking about is, so some of the stuff that I've been working with clients on a page and they wanted help with something, or I've had help with copy on a page and they start writing and I kind of come in and edit alongside. It's the co-editing. Which I think is the thing when people think Google Docs. I mean, that was what I went immediately to. I'm like, wait, you can do that now? And I got very excited when I saw your when I saw the alpha plugin. I'm like, oh, that's going to be really nice. I can't wait for that to come out properly so I can try it.
But the thing is, that plugin has nothing to do with being able to edit at the exact same time. That's the suggesting, the editing, the comments, like all the stuff in Google Docs that you would get. That's what that is. So it makes commenting, instead of it being like an Obsidian specific comment syntax, it's what's it called? Site market. I can't remember what it is. It's some name of markdown thing. But they're using a comment style, so it actually shows as a comment. And then the plan is to be able to add or link in some way the user's account, which is like the sync for like account thing, to the comment. Now I've done that in a hacky way, using templator with @Danny @James. So when I'm doing a task, I can push Control-Shift-D for me, Control-Shift-J for James, and then the tasks look for Danny or James. So James has his list of tasks, I have my list of tasks. So there's that. But when it comes to suggesting and editing files in Obsidian at the moment, it's just a edit. That's all you can do. We have draft versions, so draft 2 at the moment, and then I go through, answer all the questions, add stuff in. So it's a task block. Then indented underneath it is my answer, which is a bullet. And then if James has another question, it goes in as a task assigned to me, so @Danny on it, and then it comes up in the dashboard. So even though all of the comments, the conversations are inside the draft page, I see them in my dashboard.
That's cool.
And then once we've gone through draft 2 is then draft 3. And draft 3 is a new file, but the file can just have the information that was found. So if there was a bit of research I needed to find, he'll put that into the next bit rather than editing exactly what it is and sort of overwriting the information. That's his personal preference. For me, I'm just going to overwrite it because version history is saved in Obsidian anyway with the file recovery plugin. So I can look back anyway. And with the commentator plugin that's in alpha at the moment, the suggested edits, that just makes that process a little bit easier.
I think it's the fear of overwriting. So if we're both working on one page together at the same time, and I'm not really talking about writers here, I'm talking about kind of, if we think about Notion, because that's what the comparisons will always be, because Notion is seen as the other one.
Yep.
Like we can both work inside of a note for a project, and we can both get information about it, take things and do this with it, do that with it, etc., etc. We can do a lot with it. And I think that is.
But I still don't know when people will edit the same page, because when I look at Ali's team, right,
I think it's a case of like, if we want to, we can. It's not a risk point.
I see what you're saying, but I don't get when.
I don't know. I don't really have a good answer for you. But like the thing is that if you lose something, I think it is basically, if you lose something, it's terrible and everything's broken and everything will never come back again. Even with the I don't want to risk having to use the history plugin, because what if it's the disasterification of like, I don't have time to go and fix it.
That's the same as Notion going offline.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
Yeah.
Don't say it's rational, but that is the response.
I see what you're saying. It's just like when I hear that I want to work with people on the same file together, like, so for example, James and I share a journal file, right? So there's a daily journal for me to put in the summary, the blockers, what I'm doing tomorrow, and then any thoughts that happen throughout the day. Like, I just got to brain dump stuff in here. And he uses the exact same file. We've been using it for a week, and there has been no issues at all. And I think that's because we don't come up with an idea at the same time.
I think that's fortunate, because if you do, then you're in trouble.
But I mean, I wouldn't even know if we had.
That I think that's also another point of like, we don't know.
But when I'm typing, because of how quickly Obsidian syncs when you're obviously connected, when you're not connected, I don't know, because we don't, like, when we're working offline, we just do, if that makes sense. Like when I'm working on my stuff on the train, for example, I'm offline and then I just sync it up, but it's on my stuff.
I just have to come back and say this, because being able to be in Obsidian offline, I don't have to think about it. It's so underrated. Like, oh, yeah. I'm just like, every single time. So of course, when I go down to D&D, I could have internet if I wanted to. I'd use my phone and sync it up there, because I do it out of the person's hand. But I don't need the internet to be able to do that. Now, that for me is, I'm always connected, almost always connected. So it's not really a big deal. But even then, it's like, oh shit, I don't have an internet connection. Where am I going to put it? Oh, I can't put it in Notion because Notion won't load. Oh, Obsidian. There you go. Just put it in there. Blah, 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 blah. Off I go. And it's
Mm.
just so love it. Anyway, I get very excited about that because it's
But
just so.
that's the
It
feeling
is
I had
so.
yesterday.
Yeah,
That
it's just
that's
I don't have to think. Don't have to think about it.
and that's the feeling I had yesterday when I figured out the sort of like the workflow with, as you saw, that the canvas dashboard of the script being split up, having the task there, like
Yeah, I must
every,
admit, I'm gonna have to go play with that a bit because
every
I'm just like, oh, that's really simple. I might actually write some damn content. Uh,
everything that I wanted from Google Docs while I was working in it for the month in there, I was like, I want an easy way to find these tasks because what I had to do, I had three options, right? I either made the task with Google Tasks and then synced Google Tasks with my Morgan, but that was a pain. So I had to drag it in and across. Or I copy the link to the comment because the comment was the task, and then have to follow the comment thread to find the task down it because the conversation carried on. Like 5, 6 comments later, I'm like, that's the comment I want. I can't copy the link to that, and I can't add that to Google Tasks. I need to copy the link to the top comment and then bring that into somewhere. And it was just such a pain in the bum. And then whenever there was anything that I wanted to see, like as an overview, I couldn't just look at somewhere. I couldn't look at a corkboard in Scrivener. I couldn't look at a canvas in Obsidian. I had to open the outline, close all the different bits, and be like, right, what's going on? That's over there. And then I have to open the next part of the outline and then look at like the subsection because we've got chapters. So I'm looking at chapter 1.3 and comparing that with 2.7. I'm like, oh, I can't look at all of these at the same. And it's so frustrating. There were so many bits where I'm like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to see these together? Whereas Obsidian, I'm just like, oh, just narrow to that heading, narrow to the heading. I'm going to compare them. Like, oh, it's so much easier.
it is so nice, and it just doesn't.
I don't have to faff. I don't have to, and even with like the problem of how do I assign James a task? So, for example, because it's a video, right? There's B-roll in there. How do I find the B-roll specific tasks? Oh, wait, I look for tasks that have B-roll in it. Done. How do I find the motion graphics? Mo-graph in it. Done. And then I can separate them. How do I find what B-roll James needs to do? Well, look for B-roll with an @James in it. There's one of them at the moment. I'm like, it's so much. If I had to do that in Google Tasks, I don't know how I would do it. Even if we were writing in Notion, how would I have that task inside of the script so I know where it needs to be placed in the timeline? Oh wait,
You'd
I
use
can't.
AI. You'd use AI. You could do it with it. You can do it with the AI block now,
How?
but then you have to pay more for the
Wait,
AI block.
how? I'm curious how.
So you can set a command in a custom AI block which goes find all tasks with X.
No,
And I
no, no.
think
What I mean is like if you've got a script,
Mhm.
yeah,
And you've got tasks in it, yeah. You add tasks throughout.
yeah,
Yeah, you can actually do that because I did that literally. I wanted to see whether it was possible because I was
right.
in Notion. I was like, oh, I wish I could just get all my tasks in one place. And I was making notes during a call. And I literally just at the bottom created an online AI block and literally said, give me all of my tasks for this. And I could probably, I mean, I'm going to check because I don't actually know now.
I was going to
I
say
want to,
double check that because that's useful. That's useful
because
to know. I
that
mean,
is really, really nice.
it is using AI, which Obsidian does natively, but it's still
Yes, of course, but
it's still a solution. Notion still has a solution. That I was going to say that that is a use for AI that Notion that I understand. Like I get that. The rest of the AI uses, I'm not sold on.
yeah. So if I so what I would I don't have to test this. I'm kind of excited. Find all tasks in this page that have @Jonathan on it and list them. But why am I not sharing my screen?
I really
Can I
don't
share
know.
my screen? Yeah, should be fine.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I'm like, mental check. Is there anything private that I shouldn't be sharing? Right. Okay. So yeah, so you've got tasks in there with Jonathan. Nice. Find a task in this page. Yep. because that's one of the biggest issues I had with Google Docs is I wanted to add a task next to the script. Can you click it and then it take you to where it is?
No, it can't take me where it
What?
is.
That's no good, is
Yes,
it?
but that means, but like,
That's a query, yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say add and show me, yeah, because it should have like a block link, because obviously it's Notion, so it should be like URL links.
that'd be interesting.
Yeah, because if it links, then you've got essentially a query. I'm not seeing a
Not
link to.
looking like it is. No.
Wait,
I could just
why are
put.
there 5 there? Are there other tasks above?
Mm, yeah. It looks like it might have got these.
Yeah, it literally just looks like it's just copied them and added at Jonathan at the end of them rather than actually
Looks like it
querying
has.
for them.
The first one it did it properly, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, link me to the task. I told it to link me to the task.
Oh
That's
yeah.
fine.
Right. Yep.
There you go. See. So it found all of them. So actually, it can do that. That might be a tweet in a minute. Because that's actually really good. And then of course I can do that again with a different block. That's actually quite cool. That's
Yeah.
finally a really good use case.
Yeah. I was going to say that's a good use case for AI, but being able to link back to it, that's the big bonus for me, because I can then go back to like a 10,000, 15,000 page doc, exactly where the task is. And I can see the context and the conversation that's gone before and after it. And if, like you will be able to do it in Notion some way. It's just working out what prompt to give the AI, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that now.
Yeah, but yeah, that would be really helpful. However, with the Notion AI, I'm curious because you'll know this because I don't. Do you have to pay for Notion AI, or is it all free and there's no
No,
limitations?
you have to
You have
pay
to
for
pay.
yeah, it's extra.
So would that be each block or each time you render the block?
You have a certain amount of things with it. Yeah, I can't
Because
link
I know
back.
they use like tokens and stuff. But I
Yeah,
mean,
so you have a certain amount of tokens and you've got to pay, I think it's like 5. As of right now, it's 25. No, it's not that. It's $5 a month per person, I think it is.
right, okay. Actually, something else I just thought of is Obsidian, because obviously it's native and queries and stuff. It updates, so when you tick a task off, it's done. I would imagine you'd need to update the AI block each time you do a task.
Yeah.
Come on, Notion. I thought you'd solved something. I thought you were there. Maybe, maybe you are keeping up with Obsidian or not. But yeah,
I'm
so that
actually changing it. So final tasks on the page that have Jonathan on it and aren't completed. So I'm going to go up in a minute and I'm going to complete them. So
cool. You can share your screen so we can
oh
see.
yeah, no, I can't because it's got some
Oh,
people
personally stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so I can share this. We're gonna look at it live and see if it
Ooh.
works. I'm
Well,
gonna click update. So I've
live
ticked it
last
up
week.
task. Well, yeah, and I'll see if it removes it. Yeah, it's got rid of that one. That's cool. That's really cool. So
That's the
that's the
prompt.
that's the prompt. Final task on the page that have name on it and aren't completed.
Cool.
I could probably, if I do this or don't. Oh yeah, I can't.
Yeah, Nation's like, yeah, no, don't do that. You can't do that.
Okay, fine. Anyway.
Actually, I saw something recently about Thomas Frank tweeting about the space of the AI getting annoying.
Mm,
Is it
I
annoying for
don't
you as well?
know.
Interesting. I've heard some people say that it's really annoying, like when you push space and then brings up AI, you're like, go away. But show me all the tasks that are completed with Jonathan in the name from above. Generate. Cool. Cool.
So if I click, we'll have to delete some of that. Oh, there is a task with that. I need to update.
Oh, it's AI's getting it wrong. Put the at Jonathan, maybe.
There we go, and it shows. That's pretty cool.
That's a nice use case for AI. I mean, Obsidian does it for free without AI
Yeah, of
dynamically.
course it does. But people who are Notion people need it. I don't even think
Might
that's
want to use that. Actually, yeah, that's a cool use for Notion AI. I'll give it a half star.
Yeah, I quite like that. I was quite
We
surprised
just
at that.
stumbled upon something there.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. But yeah, so Obsidian just solves all those issues for me, and obviously it's fast. You don't have
Yeah.
to do the update and stuff. And Google Docs just it doesn't give me those flexibilities.
And I think with more AI tools it will, because AI is coming to Google as well, so they'll probably be able to do something like that.
They'll get there, but Obsidian can already do it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my
If you're already there, why bother?
exactly. And it's faster, and it's
Yeah,
offline, and you
yeah,
get more flexibility. And I'm biased towards Obsidian.
absolutely.
Like I'm wearing the jumper. Come on. I'm not one of those creators that wears a jumper because they got given the merch for free. I'm one of those creators that wears the jumper because they got given the merch for free and they promote it a lot.
Yeah. So
I would have bought it even if they like the only reason I got it for free is because I won the Obsidian October thingy. But I would have bought it anyway. Like I'm a VIP in Obsidian. I pay for 2 published sites. I pay for Obsidian's thing. I give them a lot of money because I do
and it's
not
worth it.
want them to disappear.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But yeah, so to summarize, time blocking is amazing. Do all of your project management in a calendar rather than a project management app, and use Obsidian instead of Google Docs.
Wow.
That's the oversimplified version, like oversimplified summary of our podcast today.
We didn't talk about anything about oversimplification. Let's do that.
What is
So you've been at war this week.
Yes. Well, not necessarily a war, just I guess to give you a bit of a teaser into the thought behind the current essay that I'm writing. I'm at a point now where I am sick of believing what the study YouTube, or as was, speaks about. Long story short, it's going to be a video essay. I did a degree in sports coaching. I did a degree in strength and conditioning. I then watched videos from doctors on YouTube and thought, shit, these 5 years have been a waste of time. I need to learn all this stuff. 3.5 years later, I realized, you know what? All these people still have no evidence or really bad evidence as to what it is that they're talking about. And I still don't have any good answers to what it is they're talking about. Let me take a look at what I think from my degree. And it turns out what my degree was teaching me wasn't a waste of time. And the 3 years of me faffing backwards and forwards wasn't actually not unneeded, but it wasn't needed. And I'm at a point now where I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to challenge these people. I'm confident enough now in my evidence base and my rationale to challenge these people, and that's what I'm doing. I'm challenging oversimplifications, poor research, evidenced backed videos. Yeah. Shitty evidence.
I find it so hard to just be on the internet with some people.
But it's understandable where they're coming from, and I'm finding now that being so. This is from a Mark Manson video that I watched. Controversy, like having controversy and being conflicting and contradicting with something is one way of gaining popularity, but you can easily lose that unless you're right. Yeah, like if you're contrarian and you're right and you double down on that, that's where like fame, success, whatever word you want to put in there comes from. When you look at Bill Gates, phones, same sort of thing. Seth Godin with his marketing talk, same sort of thing. Simon Sinek with his why, same sort of thing. Like they were contrarian to an idea. They were right about their idea. and they marketed it well because they doubled down on their ideas. Did they fail a lot in the process of getting there? Hell yeah. did they get called out on a lot of things? Hell yeah. But they were contrarian with their own views, shared their views, and it turns out they were right. And I think with the study tube, the development of study tube, it wasn't contrarian in that, oh, this is new ideas, these are different ideas, because it was the start of something.
Mm.
What they were contrarian to was an old system, an outdated system that people had already been fighting against and people still already like fight against now, but there's no answers to it because it's a system and you can't fight against that system unless you have real leverage, which none of the study YouTubers have. And even people in government don't have enough leverage to change the educational systems because they're just ingrained in the way that human life works right now. Big existential problem right there. But they weren't being contrarian to an idea. It was just saying, hey, this system that we know is really bad is really bad. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. And then giving ideas. And the ideas were ideas taken from other people. But the ideas that they were taking from were one part of a much larger discussion that the study YouTubers, I don't think, have seen. A lot of them now do, but they're at a point now with their content. Ali is a good example of this, and he won't mind me saying this because we spoke about it recently, is that he has people that not necessarily rely on content, but want content. Like he's got a business. He can't just sit there for 3 months, not post anything because he's got to pay people. So he's got to post content. So there's got to be an element of, I should have done more research here, but I don't have enough time to, or I don't want to in some cases, maybe. And I know, like, I don't want to speak on Ali's behalf, but Ali has said sometimes where it's like, I wish I had done more work here, or I wish I'd done more research here, or I know this is oversimplified, but I don't have insert X thing to do that yet. So his content, head of content, whatever you want to call him, or them, I think it's a him, but I don't want to gender anyway. So they say, just post the thing. And in the YouTube space, content creator space, just post it is a thing, which is why video essayists, in my eyes, are better people to watch because they don't take the just post it approach. If it takes them 2 months to make a video, it takes them 2 months to make a video. If it takes them 10 months in the case of James to make a video, it takes 10 months to make a video. It's not I need to post a video this week. Let's post some oversimplified bullshit about some random rubbish that I found and say, hey, this study backs it up, even though it's got like 5 participants. Yeah. They don't do that. So to summarize the rant, I want to challenge these people. Yeah. I was trying to mic drop, but I can't because the mic's in my face. So I'm mic dropping at the top of me.
You're mic dropping your head.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wait, if you reverse that, and instead of it going down, it was going up. I'm like, ooh, brain coming out.
So
that's a sign for forgetting anyway. So
yeah. So question for you. You were talking about like if it takes 6 months to do that, to create the content, it takes that much time to do that content. I love that. However,
yeah,
is there a point where it just needs to go out? Because I could very easily, I'm thinking about my own content and what I want to produce and what I want to do, because I do want to produce. And once I've kind of shored up the business a little bit, that might be what I might turn in and end up doing. I like talking about this stuff. And I think it's really valuable for business owners who are still stuck in even more outdated advice. And so I want to bring that in. But how do you...
Where is the line between research and too much research?
The
easy answer to that, in my eyes, is having an evidence base, an argument. The way I check myself on that is if I was to argue with the average person, would I be able to make a solid case with evidence to justify my argument? If I can't, I need to find the answers to those things. How do I measure an average person? To
Yeah,
me,
that's yeah.
yeah, to me, my average person is someone in my at my level of understanding around the topic. So the Feynman technique, I don't like it because it talks about giving, like, trying to explain it to a 5-year-old. A 5-year-old's not going to be at the same level of understanding to me. If I say systems theory, they're going to go, what's that? Like, there's no point. So to me, an average person is someone around my level of understanding at the same sorts of depths of understanding as me. So I wouldn't be talking with an expert because they're going to know way more than me. And I'm not talking with someone like a novice because, again, I'm going to know more than them. So it's building an argument with someone that's to a similar understanding as me, potentially from the other view as well. So knowing what arguments they may have and trying to evidence my argument against them, because inherently, as I build that argument, I will then build my expertise and knowledge and understanding in that field. And then once that video's gone out, if I do get experts coming back, I can then go, okay, next video is this next level of depth. That's I said that was an easy answer. That's how I would approach it from an easy response,
Yeah, because
because
that I think
it's
is
about
the
building the
biggest
environment.
question for me, and that's the big like, how do I build that environment and what constraint? If I don't have constraints, I will go everywhere
Mm,
all of the time, and I wouldn't get the content done. I know that because I would dive so far into the research, and maybe even risk over researching.
mm. So without being boastful here, or without trying to be boastful here, I think if you were to say, I'm going to build up an argument and I'm going to argue against Danny, I don't
Yeah,
think that would be logical, because
I wouldn't know. I mean, I agree with you 99% of the time.
I don't. But if I was to take an opposition's perspective to
Mm,
the arguments that we're making,
mm,
I still think I would win the argument because I have experience at that level of understanding in that field. If I say
mm,
to you Bayesian brain hypothesis, you're going to go, okay, I'm kind of confused here. If I
mm.
say predictive processing inside of the Bayesian brain to move like actions forwards, I don't think you're going to have a rebuttal for that in an argument.
Oh no.
And that's what I'm sort of saying is, like, you've got to pitch your argument to people around your level.
Yeah.
And when I think about that for the study YouTube, I'm like, great. So they pitch arguments at their level, but then they don't move forwards. And that's my issue with the study YouTube. They then don't carry on. They then sit there. They sit at the same level of understanding. And I'm like, surely you've learnt by now. uh, and it's just frustrating. I mean, active recall is a perfect example. Active recall has been this term jargon thing for what, 4 years now, 4 or 5 years now, and most of the people speaking about it that have spoken about it enough recognize it's called retrieval practice, but they don't bother pushing further. They don't, well, don't bother. They don't outwardly say anything about what retrieval practice is slash means. It's not active recall. It's retrieval practice. They're two individual words that mean two individually different things that have meanings behind them, and they know that. They even allude to that in some of the other content they talk about. I'm not talking about Ali here. I'm talking about everyone, the majority of people with a large following that talks about active recall, because there are some PhD like channels out there with like 100 to 1,000 views in the video, and they're talking about retrieval practice, albeit in a different light to the way I would view it, but still, it's actually talking about the practice. But these bigger creators, I'm like, there are different types of practice. There's not a one size fits all thing. You talk about that, but you don't elaborate.
Mm,
And if you don't elaborate, you're still talking at the same shallow depth you started with.
mm,
Develop, move forwards, talk about the stuff.
mm.
And if this is me spitballing here, I feel like their justification for this is, I don't want to overcomplicate it for the audience. And to me, that's belittling of the audience.
Yeah, that was something that I've been coming to myself as well. Like, as I've been thinking about the content that I'm producing, I'm like, oh, I don't want to overcomplicate and use too much of this or do that. And then I'm like, yeah, but if I assume that's assuming they're incapable. That
Mm.
the assumption I've made there is they are incapable of understanding a complex topic, meaning if they don't understand the complex topic, they'll never understand the complex topic, meaning like the knowledge that I have is I am almost locking it behind an assumption instead of actually providing them with the capacity to go, that's intriguing, I'm going to go look that up.
I think what's interesting is that like when I was doing my undergraduate degree, something that was like told quite often is don't underestimate the kids you're coaching, because the kids will know more than you think they know, and a lot of them do. And that's why I succeeded, or one of the reasons I think I succeeded with the troublesome group that I had, because yes, they had all of these learning disabilities and they struggled with all of these things, but I didn't treat them as idiots. I treated them as children that could play sport, in this case, football. And they understood what was going on. Yes, they struggled with certain things, but I treated them as people that were competent. And if they struggled, then we know where to go from. But I didn't pitch them something that I knew they could do, because they'd get bored. They would always get bored. They'd get frustrated because they knew they could do it. So I had to pitch it somewhere challenging. And we're not talking to children here. We're not talking to 7, 8-year-olds. We're talking to 15 plus most of the time on YouTube. And when you look at my audience, I think it's like 60% of my audience is around my age range. I'm talking to other mid-20s. Like, they're not stupid. They're competent enough to do a quick Google search or Wikipedia search and find out whether you're telling the truth or not. And most of them are competent enough to pick an AI and be like, hey, ChatGPT or Bing, tell me the answer to this thing. Like, I need to go beyond that. And if your content doesn't go beyond that, you're in my eyes,
I mean, just mentioning ecological dynamics into anything, you're beyond ChatGPT. It still makes me giggle. I try because it's fun. I just love watching it.
It's because there's not enough content. There's not enough content for it to be like, oh, this is the next word. This is the next word, or this should be the next word, because it doesn't read academic papers.
Yeah, I do find it fascinating. So I put in ecological dynamics, and I'm just like, oh, it's really funny. They're like, all right, back to the academic paper. Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking to change that, and that's what I'm learning channel is about. But yeah, I've actually got to do stuff. I've actually got to post content.
I know, right?
And it's like effort, man. It's like so much effort.
Yeah.
And this is something that I'm experimenting with. I'm doubling down on my sarcastic smart-ass tone. I was like, I'm so sick of people being serious.
Yeah.
And even with the laid back conversations that we get with some of the study YouTubers, it feels it's vloggy, but it just doesn't feel well presented, I guess. It feels more like a spitballing video than a, hey, I've actually done some research here and this is what I found video. It just feels like I'm going to add a title screen of tip 1 or hack 1 or point 1 or whatever, and then list out the points. I'm like, I don't know, just
good luck doing that with any of the subjects we think of. I've been there, like, how can I put this? No, that's not even a 1. That's like a 12, but also a 1.
I was looking at story structures, right? Obviously, the 3-act structure is the one that I've been exploring most recently. And I feel like the ecological dynamics is a subplot. I feel like it's a subplot that goes between the 3 acts. It's never the center of attention.
Yeah.
Because it isn't a thing in itself. It's just so many different things that sort of go along as you're telling a story.
As I've been trying to think about making content about ecological dynamics, but then every time I try it, it just comes up like missing something. It's not enough on its own. There needs to be more, and it's almost just there. It's always there.
Ecological dynamics, it's not a character, right? No. It's not a character in a story, because it can't be really. But it's not a point of conflict either. But then it's not a solution either.
No.
It's an underlying philosophy that could lead you to a solution from a conflict, which means there's a subplot. And And that's why I mean, this is me like spitballing again out loud. That's why I think I've struggled so much to do these videos on ecological dynamics, because you can't make it a thing. Like, I
No.
tried making it a thing in a video, and it's an old video on my channel. Feel free to have a look, but there's so much jargon in there. Good luck understanding it. Because making it its own thing, you need to, like telling the story of ecological dynamics just inserts so much jargon that you just get so lost. And I feel like it's a subplot. It would be a subplot of an entire channel, not a video.
Yeah.
Like, it's just this. It's kind of like oh, have you seen Gemi or Gemi? I don't know how you say it. Like the Obsidian April Fool's plugin. Oh, it's like Clippy, but it's an Obsidian thing that sits in the bottom right, and when you hover over it, gives you like quote stuff. Yeah, it's like that. But it's kind of like that. It's like a subplot thing of just like your Obsidian is like in ecological dynamics in the videos is sort of like blah blah blah. I struggled to do this, then I found to do this, and that's how I got through this. And I would it's like you would associate it to constraints or affordances in the environment, and those words are sort of just dropped in different parts of a story.
And that is what's happening. It's like I'm beginning to move away with trying to explain ecological dynamics as a thing in itself, but also just dropping in constraints, affordances, the environment that I'm in. Like, this is a constraint of the environment. And as I'm going through, I'm also trying to avoid using as much jargon as possible.
Metastable attenuation.
Yeah, I'm just like, I know what will happen. My
Bifurcation.
resistance to researching deeper is I'll start finding these really amazing words, and they always mean something really good because, of course, how like I see like those words are so deep. They're just one word, but they mean a lot. And trying to yeah,
Love it.
Yeah, like that there.
You're in your head. You're like, I have no idea what that is.
It's there somewhere. I'm gonna go through your vault in a minute, search bifurcation, and then find loads.
I don't actually know if I've got information on specifically bifurcation. I know it's written inside of the anatomy of dynamical systems when you write it out as a mathematical equation. But yeah, because simply put, from Bernstein's research in scale acquisition, repetition without repetition.
Oh, that's simple. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not complicated at all.
Nope, not at all. No, not at all.
He's got a whole paper on repetition without repetition, and obviously his research built up on it as well. And when you get into chaos theory and the butterfly effect and things like that inside of dynamical systems, you're like, oh yeah, okay, right, that's repetition, but it's not quite the same. Yeah, it's a bifurcation. What? Yeah, it's a bifurcation of the norm. You're like, yeah, explain that to me. And these are the rabbit holes I went down like a year and a half ago. Now I'm comfortable speaking about this stuff, and everyone else's brain's currently melting. But I'm like, how in the world do I talk about this inside of a YouTube video? Unless I go uber deep. But if I go uber deep, I then get mathematicians coming at me going, no, because we don't have a proof for that yet. And I'm like, I know, I'm talking about it in an abstract way. And then you get into a really deep conversation about philosophy versus mathematical proofs. And it's like, ugh. Anyway, side tangent.
Right there.
Yeah. I need 3 brown, 1 blue to like explain dynamical systems theory, like the mathematics behind it in a video, so I can be like, yeah, go watch his video. He's done one on chaos theory. And I know Veritasium's done a video very briefly covering chaos theory and the butterfly effect, but they're not applied in any learning context. Are applied from a physics angle and a mathematics angle. And I'm like, yeah, but life is a thing.
Yeah. Funny that. Life being a thing.
I love how I'm like using loads of big jargon technical terms and then coming back to life is a thing, repetition without repetition. It's like really obvious statements. But that right there is academics in a nutshell. It's like Minecraft. You're walking along a path, you dig down like 20 blocks, and then you like water column yourself back up. You're like, yeah, I'm normal. No one knows what's going on, and they fall down the hole. You're like, damn it, I'm lost. And then they have to pickaxe their way out all the way to the top. I don't play Minecraft. I just watch Minecraft.
Same.
Yeah. Last
Cool.
Life. Last Life is good. It's a good series.
It is hilarious. Last Life is absolutely hilarious.
I can't even remember what the recent series is called. It's not Last Life. It's not Third Life
Double
either.
Life.
No, Double Life's not the recent one. I can't remember what the recent one is. I watched it yesterday because then that's when it all came out. I can't remember. Never mind. Yeah, lovely little side tangents in there.
Third Life.
Third Life?
No, that was the original one.
Yeah, no, that's the original one. No, because it's like it's timed. They've like their time is going down, and I can't remember what it's called. I might have to Google this to find out.
Yes,
It's
that's
annoying me.
really bugging me now.
Yeah, I watched Green's video yesterday.
Yeah, so did I. I watched the
Scar's
same video.
I watched Scar's video, Solidarity. Like I watched all their videos. I can't remember what it's called. Limited Life.
That's the
I
one.
literally just brought up YouTube and Pearlescent Moon's thumbnail says Limited Life. I was like, okay. Yeah. Anyway, nice little side tangent off to Minecraft at the end of this episode.
Good.
Talk to you all next week.